You're listening to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast, episode 189. Welcome to the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Paula Price, lawyer turned certified executive coach. This podcast was created to empower women lawyers just like you to create a life and practice you love. Join me every week for a break from the hustle so we can focus on you, what you truly want, and how you can create it. If you're over the overwhelm, done with putting out fires, and ready to redefine success on your own terms, you're in the right place. Ready for today's episode? Let's dive in. Happy New Year. If you are listening to this episode the day it goes live, it's January 1st, 2025, and it is the first day of a brand new year. I just want to send you so much love, a big hug, and wish you and your families and friends all the best this year. I hope you've had the most extraordinary holidays. I hope you're still having holidays. I hope that you've been spending time with loved ones, eating all the holiday food, staying up late, going to parties, or not, if that's what you like to do over the holiday season. And I just wanted to thank you for joining me here today and for letting me be one of the first conversations that you're having in 2025. Today's episode is all about setting up some intentions and themes for the year to come. And as you'll see from the title, today we're going to talk about gratitude, courage, and growth in 2025. So this really is just a quick episode, a quick little chat, a little check-in, something that you can maybe listen to while you're transitioning from one activity to another. And it's really just something to invite you to reflect on what it is that you want in 2025. So I'm going to share my thoughts about the new year, starting with gratitude. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for joining me here today. Thank you for listening to my podcast, for sharing it with your friends, for reaching out to me to tell me how this podcast has affected you, how you've recommended it to people. It means so much to me. I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone, whether I have worked with you specifically or not. I'm just so grateful for the lawyers that I've had the opportunity to work with as a coach, as a speaker, as the leader of group programs. You really are the reason that I do this work, and being able to have an impact and see the way that you are able to grow and be more confident in going after your dreams is really why I get up and do the things that I do. So a big thank you to all of you who support me, whether it's through listening to the podcast, sharing the podcast, or working with me in some capacity more directly. I appreciate you. I appreciate lawyers who refer me to lawyers that they know, people in law firms, the professional development, talent management professionals who reach out to me to help support their lawyers and to speak on topics that are important to them. It means the world to me. So just wanted to start out and express my true gratitude because it really does mean the world to me. It brings a lot of meaning and joy to me to know that I can do this professional work and serve you. So thank you. Thank you. I would also love to thank my family and friends and the people who support me. And, I would extend this invitation to all of you, right? And this notion of gratitude, right? When you're thinking about all the things that you're grateful for, I would invite you to reflect on who it is in your life who is supporting you. So at home, who is it that is listening to you, who, that person that you always call when you've got a thorny problem or you just need someone to listen because you've had a tough day. Let's thank all of those people. If you think about people at work who support you, who are championing you, who are giving you opportunities, who are encouraging you to take on challenges that you never would feel comfortable just taking on yourself, those people matter. I just want us to all feel that sense of appreciation for what they do for us. Now, I would love for you to also have that sense of gratitude for yourself. I don't think we thank ourselves often enough, if ever. And so let this be a moment for you to reflect on all the things that you have done for yourself over the course of the year and almost thanking yourself in advance for what you will do for yourself this year, right? Just basically taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep, or at least close to enough sleep, as much sleep as you can manage, right? Treating yourself well, speaking to yourself kindly, not giving up on yourself, trusting yourself, right? These are all things that we can be grateful for, right? The fact that you have this relationship with yourself, that you are committed to your own health, your growth, your professional development, right? If you look at where you were this time last year and look at where you are this year, what has changed? What progress have you made? What has surprised you, right? In your practice, in your personal life? I would invite you to thank yourself for opportunities that you have created, right? There are these things that may have happened last year, and I'd invite you to think about what those were, right? Those projects, those files, those invitations that came to you, and you think, wow, that really came out of the blue, but they didn't come out of the blue. You were the one who created that. So you can thank yourself for all of that. I would also invite you to find the gratitude for challenges. If I think back on last year, there were a number of challenges, a lot of them in my personal life, right? And those were really, really difficult. And as much as I think when we look at challenges, whether they're personal challenges, whether they're professional challenges, we often don't wish them on anybody else. We certainly don't wish them upon ourselves. And yet, I think when we can look back on what was difficult, and I invite you to think about what was difficult in 2024, right? What were the things that really pushed you? What were the things that maybe caused you to be sad and upset and feel anxious and uncertain? Those experiences are ones that maybe we would never want to invite into our lives. And yet I think we can also find the gratitude for those experiences having happened because they profoundly and fundamentally shift our approaches to the world and to ourselves and to others. And so if you can find the gratitude for the challenges that really almost forced you to grow last year, I would invite you to find the space in your heart to be able to do that. So for me, I'm thinking about some of the challenges that came into my life last year and the lives of people close to me, and just finding the gratitude for how we were able to manage some of those difficulties and be on the other side of those challenges. On a similar vein, I'd also invite you to find gratitude for the discomfort that you may have felt, right? Whether, again, it was in your professional work or your personal life. Maybe there were times where you felt anxious, you felt nervous, you had that sense of uncertainty, you felt that doubt. And I think those messages are really important, right? I think it's really easy for us to feel grateful for the joy and the happy and the successes and the wins and all those things where we can pat ourselves on the back and feel really proud. And at the same time, I think we can feel gratitude for the times where things just felt off. Because when you have feelings of doubt or it feels out of alignment or there's anxiety, these are opportunities for you to learn more. You gain awareness about yourself, about what reason might be behind that, where there's room for growth, where maybe we need to make some shifts. So let's be grateful for that as well. And then finally, I just wanted to express gratitude and invite you to express gratitude for all of the material comforts that we enjoy. I know for myself, I am sitting here recording this podcast episode in a house with a roof over top of it. I'm speaking into a microphone that I paid for with money. You are listening to this podcast episode on some sort of a device. Maybe you've got your headphones in, maybe not. Maybe you're driving a car or you're walking outside and you're breathing fresh air. All the material comforts. Now, I know maybe it sounds a little bit hokey and you're thinking, come on, Paula, let's get on with it. But truly, I think just taking a step back and feeling that sense of gratitude is something that can shift us out of that sense of urgency and not enoughness and trying to keep up with the Joneses or whatever it is that we're trying to do, and just dropping to that sense of being thankful for all of the things that we have, all the people who are close to us in our lives, all the experiences that we get to have as human beings on this planet. So that's theme number one for the new year, is just that gratitude for all of it. The second theme is courage. Now, I am sure that over the course of 2024, there were moments where you really need to dig deep and to bring out your courage. And I'm going to offer that this is going to be a year where we are all going to want to draw upon our courage to do what it is that we need to do. Now, I think when we think about courage, the first thing that comes to mind are all of the challenges that are going to be sprung upon us without us ever even inviting them, right? The courage to have that difficult conversation with somebody who they won't do the thing that you have been asking them to do, for example, or maybe it's the courage to leave a role that really has become impossible to bear. Maybe it's the courage to break up a relationship that has been long-standing where you just find it's not serving you, it's not working out. I mean, there are so many different spaces where courage will come into play, right? These challenges that you know you need it. And I would also offer that courage is going to be invited in areas of your life where there is no need, there's no urgency for you to do something that is hard, something that is going to stretch you, but that you're going to choose the more courageous route because you want to, because there's something that matters to you about that path. So that might be the courage to dream bigger. It might be the courage to move in a direction that is kind of like one of those one-way directions, right? You may have heard that idea of like burning the boat, right? Making that decision that's kind of like a one-way direction. So it might help when you think about courage. I like Dan Sullivan's model of the 4 C's of confidence, where confidence isn't just this thing that you have, it's actually more of a process. And the 4 C's are commitment, courage, competence, and confidence. So next time you're placed in a situation where you're scared, right? You don't feel confident, it's not something you've done before, I would invite you to think of this 4 C's model, and commitment is the first C. So what are you committing to in terms of an outcome? Number 2 is courage. It's having the courage to actually move ahead. So that's what I'd invite you to draw upon in the new year, is channeling that feeling of courage. The 3rd C is competence. So as you do the thing, right, you develop your skill and you become a little bit more comfortable with it until finally you feel confident in doing it. So as a theme for the new year, what I'd invite you to think about is building in more courage into your life, right? Whether it's in your practice, whether it's in your personal life. I would also invite you to trust yourself here, right? I think sometimes you're going to be making decisions where you don't know the outcome. You cannot know the outcome. And so here, as part of that exercise of courage, is to learn to trust yourself, right? To consult your inner GPS and decide based on your values, what really matters to you, what's most important. Make your decisions from that place and trust that you're going to be okay. I would also invite you to allow things to be hard, right? There are going to be moments where it's just going to be difficult, and that's okay. And I'd also invite you to think about that there will be times where things are going to be easy, and that's okay as well. So gratitude, courage, and finally, growth. Yes, when you are thinking about your year, right? And here we are. You're like, Paula, I need to get back to the celebrations. So I'm going to let you do that in just a minute. Here, I invite you to embrace the discomfort of growth. I know I'm always talking about discomfort, but it really is the currency, the thing that we need to allow for if we want to grow and create the practice that we want, the life that we want, the personal relationships, connections, all of it. It's all on the other side of discomfort. It is kind of disappointing and yet empowering because you're in control of that. So you've probably heard that expression of growing pains. You might think about when you were young and you were going through a growth spurt and maybe your knees really hurt or other joints really hurt, or your bones were aching, and you complained to somebody and they said, oh, don't worry, it's just growing pains. So let's welcome all of the growing pains this year, knowing that on the other side of it is that growth. So whenever you feel fear or doubt or uncertainty, that's an opportunity for growth. And you don't have to do this alone, by the way. I mean, you've got people in your life, you've got me, you've got support systems. There are people who are willing to hold that space for you as you go through the discomfort. So don't think this is something that you need to be doing on your own. This is something that you get to do in community with others. I'd also invite you to think about the cycles of hustle and flow. No doubt this year, you're going to have periods that are so busy that you're scrambling to get things done. You've got your to-do lists that have their own separate to-do lists. Like, you will have lots to do. And there will also be periods where things quiet down. And regardless of whether you're in one of those peak cycles or one of those valley cycles, I would invite you to embrace the cycles of intensity and less intensity, and to be kind to yourself, to press ahead, to move forward, to pursue that growth, but without pushing yourself to a point of burnout, to take care of yourself along the way, because this is a long game. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And so please do give yourself that grace of looking after yourself, whether you're in that hustle period or if you're in more of that flow period. Now, I would also invite you to think about your upper limits, right? We've talked about this on the podcast before. It's this idea that Gay Hendricks talks about in the book, The Big Leap, where you have a certain set point where you feel comfortable, right? A certain level of growth or capacity that feels comfortable and then uncomfortable, right? So if you think about advancing in leadership or pushing your boundaries as a person, right? Your capacity for whatever it happens to be, there's a set point. And what I'd invite you to think about is that this year is going to be the year that you raise the set point, right? If you think about your room having an internal thermostat where it's going to hover at 18 degrees Celsius no matter what, right? If it gets hotter, the AC will kick in, the room will come down to that 18-degree temperature. If it's cooler, the heater will kick in and bring the temperature back up. So what I'm inviting you to think about this year is that you've got a set point naturally that you're coming into this year. And I'd invite you to think about how you're going to shift that set point up over the course of the year. And you get to decide what that looks like. You get to decide where that set point is and what area you want to grow. So that's an invitation for you to be conscious of your upper limits and how those are going to expand over the course of the year. Now, I'm also going to invite you to think about your success strategies, the strategies that you've used to get to where you are today, and how you're going to need to let some of those go, and you're going to start adopting new success strategies to get to where it is that you want to be. So if you think about those set points and how you're going to expand your capacity, chances are what that means is you're going to have to stop doing some of the things that you've been doing and shift into new strategies that will allow you to reach that new level. I'm also going to invite you to think about that one-way door concept, right? I think sometimes we can get really nostalgic over things from the past. I know I do, where I look back to maybe situations I've been in the past, whether they're professional or personal, and I think, oh, well, those were the good old days, right? We all have this idea of the good old days and we see them through rose-colored glasses. And instead of doing that, what I would invite you to think about is growth and having more of a focus on the future, what is to come. Because ultimately, while the past can feel really cozy and nostalgic, it's no longer something that exists in our reality. It's something that exists quite pleasantly in our minds, but we can't really go back to it. So I'd invite you to be grateful, right? Kind of going back to that first theme, for all the wonderful memories and experiences you've already had. And I would invite you to think about growth in terms of where it is that you want to go. What is forward for you? So this year, when you are in a situation where there are two choices or two options for you to pursue, right? You might think about this as a decision fork. And on one side of the fork is the discomfort of the status quo, right? Of being where you are, feeling a little bit stuck, for example. And there's an opportunity to do something different, and it would require that growth, but it will be uncomfortable. You may not know the outcome. You might not like it, right? You might not have the certainty that you're looking for, right? At least if you stay where you are, you have the feeling, right? At least that things will be certain. Maybe they aren't certain, but you might tell yourself that they're certain. What I would invite for you this year is when you notice yourself in one of these decision forks, to ask yourself which of these options will require you to grow more, and to seriously consider taking that path, even if it is the more uncomfortable path. And what I can tell you is that if you do that consistently, you will not recognize yourself over time, right? You will become a different person who makes decisions differently, and who opens up doors that probably were inconceivable to you before. So that, my dear friend, on this brand new day of this beautiful new year is what I have for you: gratitude, courage, and growth. I'm so excited to be welcoming this new year with you. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday. It's been such a treat to have this pocket of time with you, and I wish you and your family and your friends and all the people close to you all the very best in the year to come. Thank you, and talk to you again soon. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to miss an episode, subscribe and follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you haven't already, please leave a rating and review. Your feedback will help me create a podcast that's tailored to your needs and goes straight to the heart of what matters to you. For instructions on how to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, visit www.thejoyfulpractice.com/podcast launch. See you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joyful Practice for Women Lawyers podcast. If you want more information, visit www.thejoyfulpractice.com. See you next week.